How far can one joke go before it becomes betrayal? I thought I was being funny when I kissed someone else at my own wedding. The next day, my husband's lawyer showed up at my door, and suddenly, the punchline was my life. I used to think weddings were supposed to be fun. Not just emotional or romantic, but actually fun. I'd seen too many stiff, boring ceremonies where everyone cried and clapped and forgot it by morning. That wasn't going to be me. I wanted people to remember ours, to talk about it, to say it was different. My name's Lyra Ellington. I'm 32, and I build events for a living. Making things look effortless is my job. I know how to make moments go viral. So when I married Noah, I promised myself our wedding would be the one everyone talked about. I just didn't expect they'd still be talking about it for the wrong reasons. Noah used to say I brought energy into every room. He said it like a compliment, though later I think he meant it as a warning. He's an engineer, the type who measures everything twice and speaks once. Solid, careful, safe. I used to find that grounding. Then I started finding it dull. He never joked back when I teased him. He just smiled that patient smile that made me feel like a child performing for approval. So on the day of our wedding, when the officiant said we could kiss, I thought, why not add a little spark? Caleb was standing nearby, my co-worker and so-called best friend. We'd always joked that we'd make a great comedy duo if I ever got bored of styling events. He was playful, charming, completely opposite of Noah. When he whispered before the ceremony that I should give everyone a show, I laughed. It didn't feel dangerous. It felt funny. Noah always said I couldn't resist attention. He wasn't wrong. The thing is, I didn't think one little joke could undo a marriage. I didn't think kissing someone else for a laugh, at my own wedding, of all places, would become the reason I'd be standing in court months later, hearing my name read out like a defendant's. Back then, I just wanted people to smile, to say, "That's so Lyra." I wanted to be unforgettable. I guess I was. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The morning of the wedding felt perfect, almost too perfect. The sun was out, the florist had delivered the exact pale roses I wanted, and every chair in the garden faced the lake just as I'd planned. Everything looked like one of my Pinterest boards come to life. I remember thinking, this will be the kind of wedding people post about for weeks. Noah was nervous, of course. He always was before big moments. When I saw him before the ceremony, straightening his tie for the 10th time, I told him he needed to relax. He smiled in that slow, careful way of his and said it was a big day. I rolled my eyes and said, big, not serious. I thought I was being charming. The guests started arriving early. My mother was glowing with pride, rushing around as if she'd planned everything herself. My father just stood near the drinks table, already loosening his tie. Caleb showed up late as usual, with that crooked grin that always got him forgiven. He gave me a little wink and whispered that he'd saved my big day by showing up handsome. I laughed too loudly. Noah's groomsmen glanced at each other, not sure what to make of him. During the ceremony, everything went smoothly. My dress fit perfectly, the music played at the right moment. The crowd sighed when we exchanged vows. Noah's voice trembled slightly when he promised to love me even in my chaos. Everyone laughed. I thought it was sweet, but also a little condescending, like I was a cute mess he had to manage. I remember glancing toward Caleb, who smirked and mouthed, "Told you." That's when the idea came to me again. The fun ending. The one I'd joked about earlier that week but hadn't really planned. When the officiant said Noah could kiss the bride, I turned to Caleb instead. He froze, confused, but then played along, leaning in with a grin. I meant for it to be quick, a brush on the cheek, something to make people laugh. But somehow, his lips brushed the corner of mine. The crowd gasped. Some laughed, others didn't. I turned back to Noah and said it was just a joke, but his face looked carved out of stone. The photos were still being taken, the music still playing, but the air had changed. I tried to laugh it off, shouting that people needed to lighten up. My friends clapped. My mother said, "That's my girl!" But Noah's family looked like they'd swallowed glass. His father whispered something to his mother, who shook her head slowly. Noah didn't say anything. He kissed me quickly, mechanically, and the officiant moved on like he was desperate to end it. At the reception, I tried to fix the mood. I made a toast about how marriage needed humor. People smiled politely. Caleb joined our table, making jokes about being the stand-in groom. I laughed along, though even I could feel how wrong it sounded. Noah kept his eyes on his drink. When I leaned close and told him to loosen up, he said quietly that it wasn't funny. I told him he was overreacting. Later, when we danced, he barely touched me. His hand rested lightly at my waist, like he was afraid I'd break. I tried to make a scene of joy anyway, twirling, laughing, calling to friends across the room. I wanted the pictures to look perfect, even if the night didn't feel that way. Every time I caught his eyes, they were somewhere else. When the party finally died down, I kicked off my heels and collapsed onto the hotel bed, still in my dress. Noah sat in a chair by the window, tie undone, staring out at the lights. I told him to come to bed, that he was ruining the night with his silence. He said he just needed a moment. I asked if he was still mad. He said he didn't know what he was. I laughed and told him he'd feel better in the morning. He didn't answer. When I woke up, the room was empty. His suit was gone, his side of the bed untouched. On the table beside the bouquet was a single folded note. I picked it up, expecting something sweet, maybe an apology for being cold. But all it said was, "You turned our wedding into a performance. I didn't sign up to be your audience." I stared at it until the words blurred. I told myself he just needed time to cool off, that he'd come back after a walk. I even ordered breakfast for 2 just in case. But when the hours passed and no one came, I opened my phone and saw the first tag, "Bride kisses co-worker before groom, watch the crowd's reaction." Thousands of views, comments pouring in. Some people laughed, others called it disgusting. My stomach dropped. The video of my joke was everywhere, and my husband was nowhere to be found. By the next morning, my phone was a battlefield. Notifications, tags, messages, all of them about the kiss. The video had already gone viral. People had clipped it, slowed it down, added captions. Some thought it was staged. Others said they'd never seen a groom look so heartbroken. I kept refreshing, watching strangers dissect my face, my laugh, my so-called confidence. I told myself it wasn't that bad. People love drama. The internet would move on. I just needed to stay calm and funny. I could spin this. When my mother called, she sounded furious, but not at me. She said people were being ridiculous, that the whole world had forgotten how to take a joke. She told me to post something lighthearted before the trolls twisted it further. So I did. I uploaded a photo from the ceremony, smiling under the flower arch, with a caption that said, "Love and laughter make the best vows." Within minutes, it had hundreds of comments. Not the kind I wanted. "He looks humiliated. She's cruel. This isn't funny, it's sad." My father called later that day, quieter. He asked if Noah had reached out. When I said no, he paused for a long time and told me to delete the post before I made things worse. I said people were just jealous. He said, "Lyra, they're not jealous. They're disgusted." I hung up before he could say more. That evening, I went to my parents' house. My mother was still defending me, telling anyone who called that Noah was too sensitive. My father barely looked up from his newspaper. My sister Ella came in halfway through dinner and asked me straight out if I was cheating on Noah. I laughed in her face. "It was a kiss on the cheek," I said. She looked at me for a moment and said, "It wasn't the kiss, Lyra. It was the look after it. You liked it." My mother snapped at her to stop, but the damage was done. After dinner, I tried calling Noah again. Straight to voicemail. I sent a dozen texts, explanations, apologies, even jokes, but nothing. Finally, I wrote, "You're making this bigger than it is." Still no reply. I told myself he was just sulking. Men hate looking foolish, and I'd made him look foolish in front of everyone. He just needed to cool off. By day 3, even my clients had seen the clip. One bride sent a polite message saying she was rethinking her booking. Another canceled outright, saying she didn't want her wedding turned into a meme. I told myself they were overreacting, but every hour it felt like more people were turning against me. Caleb stopped replying to my messages too. When I showed up at the studio, he avoided my eyes and said he was keeping things professional. I told him he was acting guilty for no reason. He said, "You kissed me in front of 200 people. I snapped that it wasn't real. He said, "Try telling your husband that." When I got home that night, I tried to call Noah again, but this time the number didn't even ring. I checked his social media. Everything was gone. Our photos, our engagement post, even our couple profile picture. It was like he'd erased me overnight. I posted another story anyway, saying, "Love is messy, but laughter keeps it alive." The replies were brutal. I deleted it within an hour. The next day, a package arrived. For a second, I thought it might be from Noah, something symbolic, like a peace offering. But it wasn't. It was a courier envelope stamped with a law firm's name, Byrne Legal Group. My heart sank. Inside was a formal letter requesting that I cease defamatory online commentary regarding marital events pending resolution. I didn't even understand half of it. But the words pending resolution chilled me. My mother insisted it was a scare tactic. "He's bluffing," she said. "He wouldn't actually go to a lawyer over a little embarrassment." I wanted to believe her. My father, though, just looked at me and said, "You might want to get one of your own." That night, I lay awake replaying the ceremony in my head. The gasp, the silence, the way Noah's eyes hardened before he kissed me back. It hadn't looked like anger then. It had looked like realization, like he'd finally seen who I really was. I told myself he'd come back once he saw I was sorry. I even drafted a long message apologizing for how things looked. But before I could send it, another email arrived. This one directly from his lawyer. It was brief, almost cold. "Mr. Ellington has retained counsel. All further communication should go through his representation." That was when I realized he wasn't just angry. He was gone, and he was serious. The envelope from Noah's lawyer stayed on my desk for 2 days before I could open it again. Every time I looked at it, my stomach tightened. The paper felt heavy, like it carried something final. When I finally read it properly, it wasn't just a warning. It was a notice. Petition for dissolution of marriage. It looked cold, emotionless, nothing like the man who used to whisper he couldn't live without me. The date, the file number, even the font felt like judgment. I called my mother first. She told me not to panic, that he was just trying to scare me into apologizing. She said men like to feel powerful when their pride was hurt. I wanted to believe her. I told her I'd fix it, that Noah wasn't the kind to give up easily. She said to remind him how much we loved each other. But when I tried to text him, the message wouldn't even go through. He'd blocked me. The next morning, I went to work. Everyone was whispering. I could feel it. Even the interns avoided eye contact. Caleb was in the back office pretending to type, but I saw the guilt on his face. I walked up to him and said we needed to talk. He said there was nothing to talk about. I said he could at least help me clear things up since he was in the video too. He shook his head and said he'd already spoken to Noah's lawyer. My chest went cold. "What did you tell him?" I asked. He said he'd told the truth, that it wasn't staged, that he hadn't expected it. I told him he'd just betrayed me. He said quietly that I'd betrayed myself. Then he walked out. By lunchtime, I decided to go see Noah in person. I drove to his brother's apartment downtown, the one he always stayed at when he needed space. His brother opened the door just enough for me to see the boxes stacked behind him. I asked if Noah was there. He said no, that Noah didn't want contact. I asked if he'd at least give him a message. He said no again, and before closing the door, he added softly, "He's not angry anymore. That's worse." That night, I tried to take control again. I opened my laptop and wrote a long social media post. I talked about love, forgiveness, and how people love to judge what they don't understand. I said that my husband and I were going through a rough patch, but that humor had always been part of our story. I told myself it was elegant, that it showed strength. Within an hour, the comments exploded. "He's divorcing you, not joking with you. You humiliated him and you're still talking about humor? This woman has no shame." I deleted it before bed, but screenshots were already spreading. My sister Ella came by the next morning, uninvited. She didn't even sit down. She just stood in the doorway, holding a cup of coffee and staring at me. She said I was destroying myself, trying to pretend it wasn't my fault. I told her she was enjoying the drama because she'd always hated me being the center of attention. She said, "No one hates you for being the center, Lyra. They hate you for not knowing when to step out of it." I threw her out. Later that day, my mother called again, insisting we host a family dinner to show Noah we were still a unit. She said his parents had agreed to come if he came too. It sounded desperate, but I didn't care. I just wanted him to see me again. I planned everything. Candles, his favorite meal, the same wine we had on our first anniversary. I even wore the blue dress he said made me look calm. When they arrived, his parents barely greeted me. Noah came in last. He looked thinner but composed, like he'd been sleeping well while I hadn't. I rushed to him, smiling like nothing had happened. He didn't smile back. During dinner, my mother kept forcing conversation, filling the silence with cheerful lies about how we'd work it out. Finally, I tried to speak directly to him. I said we could fix this, that every couple had ups and downs. He said quietly, "You made me a stranger in front of everyone I love." My mother told him not to be dramatic. My father told her to stop. I started crying, saying he couldn't just throw away everything over one joke. He looked at me then, really looked, and said, "It wasn't a joke, Lyra. It was the truth you finally showed." Then he thanked my parents for dinner and left. I stood there shaking, mascara running, while everyone pretended not to stare. My mother hugged me, whispering that he'd come around. My father didn't say anything. I went upstairs and locked myself in the bathroom. For the first time, the mirror didn't show the confident woman I always pretended to be. It showed someone small, desperate, and scared that the performance was finally over. The letter from my lawyer came 3 days after the dinner. I opened it at the kitchen counter, surrounded by empty glasses and unopened mail. It said I needed to prepare for evidence review and discovery. I didn't even know what those words meant, only that they sounded serious. My mother said lawyers always used big words to make things scarier than they were. My father told me to stop posting online before I made it worse. I told him he was overreacting. I hadn't done anything illegal. But a small part of me started to wonder if maybe I'd done something worse. When I met my lawyer in person, she was polite, but clearly unimpressed. She said Noah's legal team had already provided compelling documentation. That phrase made my stomach flip. I asked what kind of documentation. She opened a folder and read from a list: the wedding video, text messages between me and Caleb, and screenshots of deleted posts retrieved from cloud backups. My throat went dry. "He's been planning this," she said. "He's precise. He isn't angry. He's organized." I tried to defend myself, saying everyone was exaggerating, that it was just a misunderstanding. My lawyer didn't even look up. She said, "If you want any chance of reducing damages, stop defending yourself publicly." I told her I hadn't said anything wrong. She raised an eyebrow and said, "Your posts say otherwise." That night, I went through my phone deleting everything: old texts, photos, messages I didn't even remember sending. But the more I deleted, the more it felt like proof I was guilty. Every time I erased something, I saw his face in my mind, calm, steady, not shouting, not begging, just gone. The next day, Caleb called. His voice was tight, uneasy. He said Noah's lawyer had contacted him again and that he'd given a statement. He said they had screenshots of me telling him that Noah was too boring to handle my kind of love. I told him I never meant it seriously. He said, "You typed it, Lyra." He sounded almost sorry. Before hanging up, he said, "You should let this go before you lose more than your marriage." That made me furious. I told him he'd be nothing without me. He didn't respond. My mother kept saying the same thing she always did, that Noah was still in love with me, that he just needed time. My father stopped commenting altogether. I started to realize that when he stayed quiet, it wasn't because he didn't care. It was because he'd given up believing I'd listen. I tried one more time to fix my image. I set up my phone, turned on the soft lamp by the couch, and recorded a video. My voice shook as I talked about how people were twisting the truth, how one lighthearted mistake had become an online witch hunt. I said, love shouldn't be punished like this. I said, I forgave Noah for reacting harshly. I even cried real tears this time. When I posted it, the views shot up within minutes. For a few hours, I felt powerful again. Then the comments came. Still no apology. She's performing again. She's more upset about the internet than her husband. By morning, the video was trending for all the wrong reasons. Someone even posted a side-by-side comparison of me crying in the video next to me laughing at the wedding. The caption said, "Same face, different act." I deleted everything, but the screenshots were already everywhere. When I met my lawyer again, she said Noah's side had added emotional cruelty to their filing. I asked what that meant. She said, "He's arguing that the public humiliation caused reputational and emotional harm." I said, "That's ridiculous." She said, "Maybe, but it's working." That evening, I went to my parents' house again. My mother said we'd fight this and win. My father just looked tired. I told them it wasn't fair, that Noah was using lawyers because he couldn't handle confrontation. My father finally said, "No, Lyra, he's using lawyers because you never listen unless it's public." I didn't reply. Back home, I opened my email. There was a new message from an unfamiliar address. Short, almost polite. "You are hereby summoned for deposition. Attendance required." I stared at it until my vision blurred. For the first time, I couldn't tell if I wanted to fight or hide. The apartment was dark, quiet, except for the hum of the fridge. I picked up my phone, almost out of habit, thinking about posting again, about explaining myself one last time. But then another message came through. Just 4 words, no signature. "See you in court." The deposition room felt colder than I expected. It was small, bright, and smelled faintly of paper and disinfectant. My lawyer sat beside me, flipping through her notes, pretending to be calm. Across the table, Noah was there, his lawyer next to him, a court reporter typing softly. When he looked at me, it wasn't anger anymore. It was distance, like I was a stranger who'd wandered into his life by mistake. The questioning started simple. My name, my work, the date of our wedding. I answered mechanically, trying to sound professional, unaffected. Then Noah's lawyer slid a thick folder toward me. He asked if I recognized the messages printed inside. I glanced down and saw my own words, ugly in black and white. He's too serious for me. Caleb actually laughs at my jokes. I said they were harmless, things people say when they're stressed. He asked if I'd deleted them after being notified of legal action. I said I didn't remember. He nodded toward the court reporter who noted everything. Then he showed a screenshot of another text. "The kiss will loosen him up. He needs it." I froze. I'd forgotten writing that. He asked if that message had been sent before the wedding. I said yes, but it was sarcasm. He didn't reply. He just turned the page to a photo of Caleb and me at the reception, laughing while Noah looked away. "Was this also sarcasm?" he asked. My voice cracked when I said yes. I looked at Noah then, hoping he'd step in, maybe stop the humiliation. But he didn't. He just sat there, hands folded, eyes fixed on the table. His lawyer kept going, asking about the deleted posts, the video I'd uploaded crying, the way I'd kept insisting it was all a misunderstanding. Every answer I gave made me sound worse. I said I didn't mean harm. I said I just wanted people to laugh. The lawyer nodded as if he'd heard it all before. Then came the question I wasn't ready for. He asked, "Mrs. Ellington, during that moment at the ceremony, were you thinking about your husband or your audience?" The room went silent. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I stared at the recorder, at my reflection in the polished table. Finally, I said, "Both." It sounded weak even to me. He wrote something down without a word. My lawyer asked for a short break. I stood up, pacing near the window, trying not to cry. When we resumed, Noah's lawyer presented financial documents, the canceled honeymoon, the withdrawals from our joint account that I'd made the week after he left. He said his client wanted a clean division of assets, no support, no shared property. I wanted to protest, to remind Noah how much of the wedding I'd paid for, how many hours I'd spent planning everything. But the words wouldn't form. I just nodded, pretending I didn't care. When it ended, everyone stood except me. Noah gathered his papers, thanked the lawyers, and walked out. I called after him, asking if we could talk privately. He paused at the door, but didn't turn around. He said quietly, "There's nothing left to talk about." Then he left. My lawyer put a hand on my shoulder and said, "He's not trying to hurt you. He's done." It was supposed to comfort me, but it felt like the final nail. She handed me a copy of the settlement draft, short, neat, bloodless. Both parties agreed to dissolve the marriage without claim or dispute. It looked like a receipt, not the end of a life. That night, I sat at home staring at the papers. I thought about posting something, maybe a quote about forgiveness or strength, but I couldn't even open the app. The comment sections felt like open wounds now. Instead, I poured a drink and scrolled through old photos on my phone. The engagement party, the planning meetings, the night he proposed by the river. I'd looked so sure of myself in every picture, like someone who could get away with anything. The next morning, I received an email from my lawyer. The subject line said, "Finalized." That was it. No attachments, no emotion, just confirmation that my marriage was officially over. I sat at the kitchen table in my robe, reading it again and again. There was no fight, no dramatic ending, just quiet paperwork, like he'd been waiting to erase me properly. I wanted to tell myself he'd regret it, that someday he'd remember the good parts and miss me. But I already knew better. The man who'd once forgiven everything had finally found the one way to win, by not forgiving me at all. After the email, the apartment felt like a museum of someone else's life. His shirts were gone, but his scent still lingered faintly in the closet. The coffee mug with the chip on the handle sat untouched beside the sink. I kept meaning to wash it, but I couldn't bring myself to. It was proof that he'd once lived here, that this space had once meant us. Now it was just me, and the echo of everything I'd ruined. Days blurred into each other. I told my mother it was fine, that I needed quiet time to heal. She wanted to come stay with me, but I said no. I didn't want anyone here. Even her cheerfulness had started to feel like noise. My father called once to ask if I'd found a smaller apartment yet. I told him I wasn't moving. He said gently, "You don't have to keep living inside the scene." I hung up. He never called again. I tried to work, but clients had stopped reaching out. My business page was a ghost town. Every time I posted, a few comments would appear. Reminders of the video, people saying they could never trust someone like me to plan their wedding. I deleted them all, then deactivated the page. I told myself I was rebranding. Truthfully, I just couldn't bear seeing my name next to the word wedding anymore. Caleb left the studio without telling anyone. A friend texted me that he'd taken a job across the country. I didn't reply. I wanted to blame him, but what good would that do now? He'd only ever been the spark. I was the one who'd poured gasoline over my own life and called it entertainment. Sometimes I still dream about that day. Not the kiss, but the moment right after, when the laughter died and Noah's face changed. In the dream, he still looks at me, but instead of hurt, there's just pity. I wake up angry, swearing it wasn't that bad, that people have done worse. But the more I repeat it, the less I believe it. One afternoon, a package arrived with no return address. For a second, I thought maybe it was something official, maybe even a mistake. Inside was a small brown box, neatly folded tissue paper, and on top, a white envelope. My name written in his clean handwriting. My heart jumped, stupidly hopeful, like some part of me still thought he wanted to talk. I opened it, and inside was a short note. No hard feelings. Keep the joke. Beneath it was my wedding dress, pressed and refolded perfectly. I sat on the floor, staring at it for a long time. The fabric shimmered softly in the afternoon light, almost mocking me. I touched it, half expecting to feel something. Guilt, grief, maybe love. But there was nothing. Just the smooth chill of satin. I wanted to call him, to tell him that it wasn't about Caleb, that it was never about wanting someone else. I just wanted to feel alive, to make people laugh, to be noticed the way he never did. I wanted him to see that I was more than just his careful, tidy wife. I wanted to stand out, even if it meant standing alone. And I got exactly that. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and scrolled through our old photos, the ones I hadn't deleted. There we were on our first trip together, me grinning wildly, him smiling quietly in the background. I stared at his eyes in that photo, realizing I couldn't remember the last time he'd looked at me that way. Maybe the truth was, he'd stopped long before the wedding, and I just refused to notice. I folded the note back into the box and pushed it under the bed. I told myself I'd throw it away in the morning. I didn't. Instead, I sat by the window until the sky went dark, trying to find something funny about the whole thing. That was always my way, turning everything into a story. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.